Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we look to reassure you that football is fixable. Alright. Alright, Tess. How are you?
Alright.
We all good?
Yeah.
Should we get straight into the news then?
Let's get into the news.
Let's not mess around. Let's get straight to it. The people are waiting. Right, there's a lot that's happened this week.
Loads.
And even more has happened. Well, maybe not even more, but a lot's happened in football as well. So
yes.
It's been a big week for football. We're currently, at time of recording, it's the penultimate week of the season, isn't it? So we've had a big set of midweek games and title races going right down to the wire and that kind of thing. So let's get into the topics. Well, first of all, I lost £10 to Dan. So you may remember, people, that Dan came on an episode when we did... Has he been on a couple of episodes? Can't remember.
I can't remember. He did the Man United one, didn't he?
Yeah, Fix Man United. And we have...
Look at where they are now.
They didn't listen to us. That's the problem.
No, that's true, actually.
That's genuinely true. They didn't listen. So go and listen to that. That's on Spotify. So, yeah, I had a bet on with Dan. A few weeks ago, we decided it. It was after... I think Arsenal beat someone 5-0 or 6-0 because we had a few good London derby games where we won 4-5-6 or whatever. And he said, you're going to smash us, you're going to absolutely destroy us, it's going to be at least 3-4-0. I said, it won't be. Whenever we go to Old Trafford, we've won once in about 16 years and twice in 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just said, no, I just can't see it. It's a psychological barrier. But Arsenal have proved me wrong a lot this year in terms of that mentality. They're getting over that line. So it's been really pleasing this season on that front, even if we don't end up winning it. But it meant that I ended up losing £10.
So you bet against Arsenal to win.
For the first time ever.
So either Arsenal wins or you gain an extra tenner.
Yeah. So it wouldn't have... I'd rather pay a tenner and Arsenal win. Not that I'd fix football. Well, I would fix football, but I wouldn't fix it.
Yeah. You know, we're not fixers. No. We're fixers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'd rather... the hurt of losing £10 and Arsenal win. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around. So
I get you.
But
now knowing that Arsenal won't win, and that was pointless.
Oh yeah, it was a tenner wasted.
Yeah.
But we did beat Man United, so for next season that might put us in good stead. We've beat them twice in the last couple of... So we didn't win last year, although we should have. But the year before that, we beat them, I think. Or it might have been the year before. We beat them when Aubameyang scored. It was recently-ish. It was in the last few years.
Okay.
So... yeah, maybe we're starting to get over that mental barrier. Because, we normally beat them at home, but away we just can't seem to do it. So that was a big win.
I'm not sure how much you can take from beating this Man United team. I'm pretty sure our Sunday League team would have pushed them. You know,
we had a good team, though.
That's true, yeah.
But, I don't know. Yeah, they're all over the place at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, I wouldn't take too much from it. It just felt like... it feels like this is their second team, because I know loads of teams have had injuries and stuff. That's fair enough. And I think Chelsea and Newcastle, they're the ones with the most injuries. And so loads of people are saying, United can't use that as an excuse. The difference, though, is that it's the key players in key positions that are out. And I think Newcastle said at one point, didn't they say 12 of their first team players are out? There's only 11 first teamers.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and a lot of their first teamers were playing as well. So it just...
how does that... Yeah. So what do they mean, their first team squad? That doesn't...
and they're they're teenagers and stuff. They just kind of... I think they wanted to make it sound worse than it was.
Yeah. I mean, they did have some bad injuries, but every team gets that.
Yeah.
But interestingly, that idiot guy... who was a terrible cheat as a player. He's come out recently.
Harsh. Coops is quite regularly on this episode.
I wasn't talking about you, Coops. I don't mean it. I was getting close and intimate with the mic there.
Yeah,
it's good.
They can pick it up. It's because of all the smoke that's getting in the way.
Put that brandy down and let's carry on. So, the Wayne Rooney came out and said that he thinks that United players have been feigning injury. Which I wonder if that might be true. I've wondered that for years. When Arsenal have been on some difficult seasons over the last 20 years since we last won the title, there's been... I just wonder, we keep getting all these injuries, but all the top sides keep their players fit. And I wonder if players do actually feel, you know what, I'm not gonna... why we're not fighting for anything? Why would I do? And I do wonder if Rooney might be onto something. Yeah,
I think the news and radio shows and stuff all kind of thought it was going to be this controversial thing, and it would start this controversial debate. But all ex-footballers I've heard have kind of come out and agreed with it. Said, I've seen that.
Yeah, they wonder that there must be something in football where, if there's nothing to fight for, why injure yourself more long term?
I mean, we did it in Sunday League.
Playing through injuries and pain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Strap it up,
And even things like, we would we would think, I'm a little bit injured, it's not worth me risking it or something. If we did it in Sunday League, of course you're going to do it in professional level.
But so I play through injuries and think, but I got work on Monday, but you still play through it, and I'd be hobbling to work, it would just be, that's like where if you've got the passion and you feel, especially if your team's doing well, you want to play. I suppose when your team's, it's natural, I suppose, like you're saying. That. So if
also,
you're not,
you didn't really run much, you didn't do much for the
that's
team.
It was more about, because I was genius, that sort of positioning, I could do a lot without moving.
Is that right?
So
Yes.
I want to also bring up, because of the stick that the Arsenal team have been getting, even though we haven't played. So since that United game, since Man City played Spurs, didn't they, during the week?
Yeah.
And Spurs were the fans, at least. So I don't have anything against the players, but the fans were celebrating, doing is it the Poznan, that Man City celebration?
Yeah,
Man
looking
City,
away from the pitch,
jumping up and bouncing in the stands.
Yeah.
Which they took from it was like a Belgian team or something, or Ukrainian team or something. Or was it Dortmund?
It might have been Dortmund.
I think there's quite a few like Champions League teams that do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Spurs, the camera went, okay, it might not be the whole stadium, but there's a proportion of fans that were celebrating losing to Man City. That just doesn't feel right.
And a lot of people have been saying it's just a small proportion, it's the minority. However, I don't think it is necessarily a minority. And if it is a minority, you're talking 40% or something significant.
It is quite a lot. And I know that like the headlines on like the Talk Sports and things like that, they tend to pick out the more extreme voices and stuff. But it was all over the socials. It was all over all these Spurs fans saying, "No, I'm happy that we'd lost," sort of thing.
Yeah,
That's not right.
It goes into a lot of what we've said before, where you can't hate your rival more than loving your team.
Yeah, you'd want your team to win first, wouldn't you?
And I know this idea that, probably Spurs fans don't want to live with this idea that they helped Arsenal win the league.
It's one game. Problem is, we don't win because of one game.
And also, how can you be so, I don't know how to say it, how can you be so stuck with this idea of you cannot let your rivals have anything? Why can't you just kind of get over it and think about your own team?
Yeah.
Is that at the moment what Spurs fans have proved is that Arsenal's living rent free in their heads.
Sure,
they can't get over anything else. It's a small team mentality to actually think, I need to make sure that Arsenal are doing badly instead of we're concentrating on Spurs and nothing else.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we said about Chelsea fans. They really want to have a rivalry with Spurs, but Spurs are kind of going, but our rivals are Arsenal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like, get over yourselves. I like how we talked about Arsenal and Spurs, and I still managed to get a dig about Chelsea.
You did,
there.
That's like a drinking bingo game, isn't it? Where every episode there's going to be Cess has a dig at Chelsea.
Yeah,
which is
it's either Chelsea or Souness. That's
good point. Yeah. With that Spurs thing, even Big Ange Postecoglou had an issue with it, didn't he? I think there was this video of him having a bit of a spat with a fan near the dugout because he was saying like give this game, just sort of don't win it kind of thing. I don't know the exact quote. Yeah, and he turned around and started having a go at the fan, saying, I remember who you are, I know where you sat, that kind of thing. And then in the post-match, Big Ange said that I've noticed some fragile foundations, and he seemed to be talking inside and outside the club. There's various quotes going around from that press conference where
he was definitely trying to insinuate, because he said that and then he goes, it's for me, I can't go into details. Well, you wouldn't have said that if you didn't want to insinuate something.
He left enough there, and when he said inside and outside, and it's been interpreted that means at least partly the mentality of the club, like you say, that small club
and
mentality.
I completely agree with it. I agree with him, because
he just wants to win.
And for him as well, and for a lot of the players, a derby I don't think really means that much compared to another regular game, because he's not from London. He's not a lifelong Spurs fan.
Yeah.
I would say almost all of the Spurs and Arsenal players aren't lifelong Arsenal fans. Yeah. And so a derby might mean something in terms of, now I play for this club, they're our rival, but you don't have that,
It's not going to be the same as the fans.
Yeah. The fans are the ones that have been the fans of their teams for their whole lives.
They're the ones with the tribalism and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Ange in a sense that I agree with his mentality that he wants Spurs to win, whatever. I don't necessarily think that he can do anything about it. So this insinuation, I think, is only going to kind of get under the skin of the Spurs fans.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
think
what-
anything,
I think
any
so-
good will come out of it.
Yeah, some of the pundits were saying that he's going to drive a wedge between him and the fans.
Yeah.
I think they'll forget about it after a while. I think he has freshened things up at Spurs. This is from the
Yeah.
outside, obviously looking in, but they play attractive football. Actually, I respect what the players tried to do. I did see on a few of the more hardcore Arsenal. Well, when I say hardcore, I mean the idiots. As there's always idiot segments of fan bases, aren't there?
Yeah.
And it was some Arsenal fans saying, Son deliberately missed it, or certain things. That absolutely not. The players gave it a good go.
Yeah.
I think they're just. I mean, ultimately they are quite Spursy.
Yeah.
Hence the name. But actually, a Spurs fan that I know said it was a small club mentality when those fans were doing that. So it's quite refreshing to see that there's different parts of the fan base saying it's just not right. That's why we're not moving forward.
Yeah.
And the players themselves would have probably had a bonus because they were fighting for Champions League, weren't they? I know it was an outside chance.
Yeah, it was unlikely, but
they
can't tell any of your teammates put 80% in. There's no such thing.
No,
you
exactly.
cannot put anything.
You can't compete to 80%, can you?
Yeah.
And they'll probably get a financial reward for being in the Champions League as well. So I imagine, like you say, because the ones that aren't real local Tottenham fans as players kind of thing, they're going to be there to try and make a good, successful career. They want to be in the Champions League. Best competition, and they'll get paid more as well, most likely. So, I've got some of the news. Did you want to bring anything up?
I do. I want to talk about Carragher and Neville.
Oh, right.
A while ago, I don't know if you remember, we talked about, I think it was the mid-season team, Player of the Year, Team of the Year, that kind of
was
the
that
awards.
around the after Christmas, New Year time, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
So, last year, when Carragher and Neville chose the Manager of the Year, they both said Pep. And both of us said we wouldn't have chosen Pep. We would have. I can't remember exactly who we said, but we said
it was like O'Neill and other candidates like that.
Eddie Howe. Yeah, there was a few of them that we said could have got it. And this year, neither of them went for Pep.
That's good to see.
Yeah, so they must have listened to our.
I guess they must
episodes.
have. I mean, we've noticed this as there's a trend, isn't there? Some of these pundits the more clever things they're coming out with. It's stuff that we said in the previous last week or two.
And they say it in a different way. They use their. It's almost as though they use their experiences and bring in big names as well to make everyone forget about the fact that that was actually stolen from us.
Keep an eye out. They'll probably go, Carragher, yeah, of course, and he'll go, Cess and James. I mean, and it'll sneak out eventually.
He was doing Jamie Carragher, everyone.
Anyway,
that's a good laugh.
That's his laugh there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you know? So Chelsea have had their Player of the Year announced. It's been, because we're getting to that end of the season time where suddenly we get the awards. All the clubs announce their Player of the Years and stuff.
Yeah.
Any guesses on who the Chelsea Player of the Year is?
What? I mean, there's only one, isn't there? I'm pretty sure only one person was nominated.
Well, that's the thing. So apparently it was Cole Palmer.
No way.
So well done to him. I think other nominations were the Tea Lady and the Groundsman.
Did I ruin your joke?
You did.
Yes. I'm so
Thanks for
sorry.
that.
Yeah, we're not redoing it.
So, and also another feature, maybe we need to get this in the future episodes, Gabby Watch. We could make
Gabby
like
Watch.
Gabby Watch, Gabby Watch. We could do like a little
a little jingle.
Little jingle for it.
That's a good idea.
Gabby Watch. Right, on the news then. So, Gabby Watch. Mm-hmm. So he said something that's clever. So I'm going to start Gabby Watch off with actually something that he's done, which is it's quite clever. Wow. So he's supporting what we were saying with so Spurs fans have a small club mentality.
Can you do it in a Brummy voice, like Gabby?
In the garden? All right. That's not bad.
Yeah, keep going.
What Spurs fans have a small club mentality.
You sound like the Beatles. Like Ringo Starr.
That's why they haven't won any trophies, claims Agbonlahor. All right.
Oh, right. You weren't doing Jamie Carragher.
Smash it there. Yeah, that was on it, wasn't it?
Okay. I wasn't actually listening to what you said. Say it again.
Coops. Sorry, what? So yeah, he said two things to be fair. So there's a bit, it's like the angel and the devil on the shoulders kind of thing. So Gabby said one clever thing, which is that Spurs have a small club mentality.
Yeah.
But he was up to his usual tricks because he then came out and said Aston Villa is a bigger club than Spurs and Rangers.
Put together?
Or yes. I don't know.
Just comparing the three against each other.
So Villa, in other news, Villa's now confirmed to be in the Champions League. So well done, Villa, got to say. Brilliant stuff. Congratulations to them. But yeah, so Gabby is obviously he's a legend for Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Apparently, maybe.
So he's saying that Villa's bigger than Spurs and Rangers.
Yes.
It's difficult for me to say anything about Rangers because I just don't know enough about Scottish teams. I just know that Rangers and Celtic are massive, but I just don't know enough about the fan base, how big it is around the world. I don't know. If you go to America, do people know much about Rangers? So I can't really talk about them. So
in terms of our, we had the episode we released recently, what makes a big club,
yeah,
all that kind of thing. We sort of say having the Champions League in your history. We did talk about history as a feature. Champions League isn't everything because we were critical of that, weren't we? We sort of said, well, winning European trophy, that adds to your history, but it's not everything. That doesn't, because Souness said you're a legend if you've won or whatever.
Yeah, people like him and a few of the YouTubers we talked about, they get drawn into this idea that history means, or being a big club means everything around the Champions League.
Yeah,
but exactly. What I said with Bayer Leverkusen, if they do the invincible treble, it's the greatest achievement for me, regardless of the fact that it's the Europa they win instead of the Champions League.
And domestic cup as well.
Yeah,
no, big claim there, big case and all that to support that.
But I would say between Villa and Spurs,
that's an interesting comparison, isn't it?
That is an interesting comparison.
You can see Gabby. I mean, he's on the Villa side, and
he's always
starts a debate for that more biased. So we just got another episode fixing bias recently come out. Go and listen to that.
Yeah, and also it's an interesting debate. But I would also add that if Gabby compared Aston Villa with Man United, he would still have said Aston Villa.
Probably would.
So I wouldn't want to give him too much credit for coming up with an interesting debate because I think he just fell onto a debate that accidentally was interesting.
Yeah, well, he did actually. Yes, an accidental thing. I actually put that down as one of the stupid things he said because you can't compare that, really. You can't suddenly just compare clubs and all of their histories and all just bottle it up and say, right, Villa's bigger than Rangers and Spurs.
Yeah,
there's so many nuances and things you need to consider. Like say fan base, history.
With Villa as well. If you want to compare Spurs and Villa, what you're actually comparing is Villa pre-Premier League and Spurs post-Premier League.
Yeah,
not post-Premier League, during Premier League?
During
the Prem. Yeah, because, Villa haven't really done anything during the Prem era. All of their stuff is really before that.
Yeah. Their European Cup win was, early 82, 83, was it? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Early 80s, I think.
Yeah. And, Spurs have their 2008 League Cup that they can compare. But also, I wanted to talk a bit about VAR.
Oh, yeah. It's been a big week for news. We didn't say this.
It's been big news. Actually, we should have started with this. This is the biggest news.
This is the big one.
Yeah. I don't think I ever say this, but it is the big one.
It is big news.
Yeah. So, Wolves, I think, isn't it? They wanted to put up the vote to get rid of it for next year.
Yes, they proposed it gets scrapped, So it's going to be voted on by all the Prem clubs.
Yeah, and everyone's talking about it now because of this new vote system, vote that's coming in. The funny thing, I think, is that I think it was Jamie O'Hara that said it on TalkSport. It might have been Jamie O'Hara.
It must be clever if it's him.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing silly that comes... In fact, actually, he was wearing a Man City top a few days ago.
So the Spurs former player and huge Spurs fan was wearing a Man City top.
And he was singing the Man City chants and everything.
So do you think in the dictionary you could just have the word embarrassment and you wouldn't need a definition? You could just put his face.
A picture of Jamie O'Hara, yeah.
Ugh.
So he said that he basically agrees with us. He must have listened to our episode on VAR that you guys should definitely listen to. We said that it's not the VAR technology that's the problem, it's the people behind it. Because we said, also in a referee episode that you guys should listen to, that the referee standards aren't good enough.
Yeah,
and they've been going down for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he said that he basically agrees that it's the referees that are the problem, not the technology, because it's the referees making the decisions still.
Yeah.
So
That's
he
quite
agreed
clever.
with that. It is quite clever. And then he did a very Jamie O'Hara thing, and he said, that's why we should get rid of it.
Right.
So
it's not the VAR that's the problem, it's the referees.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the VAR.
Exactly.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
This guy, he's an idiot.
He really is, yeah. I just couldn't believe when I was hearing it, and I thought, so you actually think, you know what the problem is, and yet you're still going to blame the thing that you said isn't the problem.
Yeah. It's like saying, the boiler's broken, we can't have a hot bath, let's get rid of the bath.
Yeah.
That's I just came up with that. That's pretty clever, isn't it?
Yeah. You actually, You always had a go at me about
bringing
coming
in
up with
completely unrelated examples to prove a point.
But now you understand that you need to do that. You need to use different analogies to prove a point.
Well, that's because that analogy was accurate.
You've evolved, basically.
don't
You've
make
learned
sense.
from me.
Was it like a Pokemon? I've evolved into my next...
Yeah.
That's what for the
Jamelian.
younger... I say for the younger kids. This was our generation at school, really.
Oh, God,
This
yeah,
is for... They're all in their late 20s and 30s now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, on the VAR thing. So in that episode, I mean, I originally said I want to get rid of it. I don't like it. I wasn't for it in the first place. I think the objective kind of yes or no kind of points in football, so offsides, goal line technology, having that's fine. But the subjective ones, I don't want it. It's too... You're never going to get a consistent answer that's always right.
Yeah.
But if it's going to stay, then we need a different system. So that's what we talked about. So go and listen to that episode. Klopp's come out and basically supported that. So he's just said how it's used right now, how they use it, he'd vote against it. He'd scrap it, essentially.
Yep.
These people cannot do it properly. VAR is not the problem, but you cannot change the people, so I would vote for scrapping VAR. So it's a clearer, more concise way of what Jamie O'Hara said. He said why he'd get rid of VAR, and that's because it's the people behind.
Yeah. And we actually said that in the episode, that I said we should keep it and you said we should scrap it. However, we both agreed if it's staying as the way it is, then we both want it gone, because that's not... If you're not going to use it right, then don't use it, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. If
and
it's
so
going
we
to stay...
showed how to fix it.
Yes, that's the thing. We said this is how it needs to change.
Yeah, I agree with Lineker more and more now. I think I'm convinced of it now, that I think it's going to stay. And if it is going to stay, then we need an appeal system. Just like in cricket, in tennis, other sports do it. And I think that's a brilliant idea, because clear and obvious decisions cannot be determined by these referees. We've said referee standards are just not good enough, and every single one of them has a different idea of what clear and obvious is. Most of them don't know what clear and obvious is, and so they're using it at wrong times. They're slowing the decisions down. The flow of the game is all...
The fans are stood there not having a clue what's going on.
And that's what Shearer said. Shearer said that he's watched games in the stands.
So have I.
Yeah, and we saw it when we saw Arsenal against Everton, didn't we? The Emirates.
You just sit there and wait.
Yeah, there was a penalty decision though. It was about 2 minutes or something. We just stood there going, we saw it.
It sucks the atmosphere out of the ground.
Yeah.
We saw it and we were
on the other side of the stadium.
The other side of the pitch. Yeah.
So I think I agree that it should be an appeal system, because then you're taking away this idea that you have to give it the decision to the refs. So now it's up to the players to say, I want you to check that. And if it takes 30 seconds because a player says it, that'll be fine, because then at the very least that includes the players. And then if you show it on the screens, that includes the
fans as well.
Fans.
Like we talked in that episode about the rugby, you make it part
does
of the
it,
entertainment.
And
also,
same in tennis does it, cricket does it.
And if it's only a few times, you get a couple of lives like in tennis or whatever, then it's not going to be all game where you get these moments. And also, the refs know that they haven't got to be looking. So VAR, because it's trying to find everything, it often misses things. This happened in the United Newcastle game, apparently, because there was an issue with Gordon being fouled. But the referee, the VAR, was too busy looking at the pull of the shirt from Casemiro and they actually weren't looking at the other things. Whereas if you say, we want to appeal and have a look at this particular thing, they can look at it.
Exactly, yeah.
And on that bombshell...
let's get to the episode.
So today then, we're talking about players' attitudes.
Yeah.
Which is something you suggested, Sess. What is it about player attitudes that you seem to have a problem with?
Oh, I just don't like player attitudes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think everyone knows what I'm talking about, because something that has gone into, I think, all of society, really, where things are a lot less tolerated, I suppose. And so we've seen from when we were kids watching, the Fergies and Mourinho's, where Fergie could literally give the hairdryer treatment. It became a famous thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas now you can't do that. Fergie even said throughout his 26 years at United, he had to change his the way he communicates with players. He couldn't do that anymore. He kind of could with the older players like Giggs and stuff, basically show who's boss, but he couldn't do it with the other players.
Yeah.
And
Suddenly the players, they lose respect for you, even though you're meant to be the authority figure that they should respect in the first place, I suppose.
Yeah, and that was it. What, 11 years ago now? Fergie retired.
So how much has moved on, most likely, since then?
Yeah, you can't. Managers can't really give the hairdryer treatment, and player power seems to have gotten so much stronger over time. It's been getting stronger and stronger since we were kids. It's not just necessarily a recent thing. Yeah, but now it's gotten to the point, I think, the attitudes are actually affecting everyone. You can see it, and player power has gotten so big that it affects the changing rooms, it affects the manager. The manager has to change all of a sudden because of these players. The case in point I'd like to put out there, Jadon Sancho.
Yes. I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But you say
it. All right.
I'm not sure everyone else knows what you're going to say.
Yeah, I know, but you say it, yeah. So Jadon, he clearly is a good player, and he was very successful at Dortmund.
Yeah,
before he came to United.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I do understand what a lot of people say. He went into a United team that was already kind of dysfunctional in a sense. It wasn't the United.
It was in transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so I can understand that him not necessarily immediately succeeding in United isn't necessarily his fault. I get that, but the biggest problem I have with Sancho is that the main reason why he didn't get along with Ten Hag was because of his lateness.
Yeah, I don't understand why players.
Yeah,
it's you're called a professional footballer.
Yeah.
What does professional mean? You need to be. That's your priority. It's absolutely something you need to be on top of.
Yeah.
It's your. You should be organising your life around it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And if you live too far away, you have to move closer. It's as simple as that.
Or leave earlier. You get there on time.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a teacher. This is stuff. It comes up every week. Students blaming buses.
Do you want to name names?
And another thing. I'm just going to start ranting now.
Yeah.
All the students.
You told me a few of those names. It was Eric, you said was always late, so Eric.
Fortunately, I don't teach any Eric, so they'll figure out that you're making this up.
Yeah, I tried it.
Eric, is anyone named Eric these days? I don't. School.
Yeah,
I don't mean that.
people.
Eric's a lovely name, by the way.
But they just kill off all Erics.
But names go through phases, don't they? Like the certain names
true.
you don't hear much anymore.
Yeah, my name's on the extinct list.
Is it?
Yeah. The problem is, I think with names, the names that carry on throughout the ages are kind
the
of
best names. Yeah, James. Yeah,
the boring names. Yeah,
well,
common and boring.
Well, they are more common, I suppose.
It's the biblical names. So James is from the Bible.
Yeah.
As in, translations from the Greek. No, there weren't actually Jameses walking around in the Middle East.
Right, James. All right, sorry about that. Carry on.
Yeah, but you have Simon, Paul, Peter, Judas.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Judas Iscariot.
That's your middle name, isn't it?
Judas. Yeah. So
Jadon Sancho.
Yeah, lateness. Lateness is something that I cannot understand how you can defend yourself. Like Sancho refused to apologise and everything, so he would have had to defend his lateness.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That makes
it drives me mad. And this is the thing where I'm going to start ranting about the job again. But students who come in and they blame the bus. It's like, but the lesson started at 1:00, so the bus hasn't taken 7 hours or whatever, has it? Get an earlier bus.
And it was consistent lateness as well, apparently. It wasn't just, if it's just one lateness and then you destroy your relationship, that's on the manager.
You might say that's harsh, and the manager needs to maybe sort of consider here, okay, hold on, give them a chance to improve. Otherwise, that's not management. You need to give someone a chance to, give them the guidance and the support they need to improve, sort of thing. Yeah. But if you're constantly late is one problem, and then you won't even accept that as a flaw on your character in a sense.
Yeah,
not something you need to address.
Yeah, the Dortmund management team apparently said that they accept the fact that he's occasionally late as long as he puts the work in. And I can kind of understand in a sense of that's how you manage a player like him.
Yeah.
However, this is what I mean about how much softer it's gotten recently. It's gotten to the point where now they can't even have a go at him for being late. That's just mental to me. No, you can't be late to your doctors, you can't be late to school, you can't be late to work, but apparently you can be late as a footballer.
Yeah, no, and this is the thing, and I'm going to look at this from my own biases in terms of being a teacher. I see my job as trying to help students be prepared for the real world. So if you're not training them on, why lateness is not acceptable, if it happens occasionally, you can, like you say, completely understand it. But this is a regular thing. So I'm still, what are we now in May, and I'm still reminding you, why are you late? Oh, it's the bus. Let's not have this conversation. It's just every day.
Eric, all right, he was late a couple of times.
Just Eric. Eric's not. I just can't deal with it.
Come on, Eric.
But,
It makes me think, though, that, we hear a lot of ex-footballers talking about how much effort they had to put into their training sessions, and some of them went in early, stayed late, and having to do repetition and everything like that. It made me think recently, we had a bit of a conversation about this, that R9, original Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho and stuff, they would be going out partying.
Yeah, they were out clubbing and things.
Yeah. There was, I think it was in Inter Milan, maybe. There was this one player that said, Ronaldo said, come out with me. And he was saying, but we've got training tomorrow morning. He was like, no, just come out for a bit. He was thinking, we'll be out till 9 or 10 or something. Apparently they were out till about 6 in the morning or something.
Oh.
Didn't sleep.
Wow.
And
went straight to training.
Yeah, well, that guy went to training, and I think he arrived there late, and he was hungover. He couldn't do anything. But when he arrived, Ronaldo was already there, and he seemed perfectly fine. Apparently, no sleep.
That's ridiculous.
Probably still drunk, or at least drunk, if not hungover.
Yeah, recovering, you'd think.
Yeah, and yet he would perform. This is the same guy that as what he was known as Fat Ronaldo, won the Ballon d'Or, the World Cup.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Il fenomeno.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, brilliant player. No, but I think he's one of the unique talents, though, isn't he? He's you might almost say he's gifted.
Yeah, gifted, but is he talented? That's the main thing.
What's that? Who also came up with that quote? We mentioned it last week, didn't we?
Yeah. Is it Garth Crooks?
Oh, that's it, Garth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Foden's talented, but Palmer's gifted.
Yeah, if you think about Ronaldo, would he be gifted or talented? Or is he both?
If gifted is better, I'd be saying gifted. Ronaldo is
whichever one's better.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest players I've ever seen. For sure. But the opposite, my favourite player, was always quoted as, and I've seen loads of players reflect on this, how he was often the first in training. Training was like the game. You train like you play kind of thing.
This is Wayne Rooney, right?
I just tasted a little bit of sick in my mouth. So Bergkamp would be often the first on the training ground. Everything would be put 100% into everything to be as best as he could. If he made one bad or miscontrol in training, he was upset and angry with himself. So it's a complete opposite approach, and that was the way he helped to get the best out of himself. And there's lots of, you think Ronaldo, for example, the new
Cristiano
Ronaldo. Not the best one, but the newer one,
the second Ronaldo.
Exactly. Made a brilliant career, obviously one of the greatest in stats achievements and that kind of thing. But it's often been mentioned by various players that it's because of his work rate and what he brought out.
You can't fault his work rate. I mean, even now he's 39, maybe?
Something around there, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and yet to think there's so many ex-players that we've heard that they say one of the reasons why they have to stop is, because of injuries and coming back from the injuries and everything. But the constant work rate that they have to put in every day, getting up early and training and stuff, it's such a toll that, isn't it? They just don't want to go back into it. A lot of them even say, I remember them saying that they don't even want to be managers or coaches. They need to step away from the pitch. They just can't.
It's too intense.
Yeah, and yet Ronaldo is still 39 and he's still putting in the effort that he did when he was 17 or 18.
It's a tough league, that, as well, isn't it? He's definitely...
the Saudi league, yeah.
Really tough league, that.
Yeah, it's got to be in the top 3 or 4 of the Middle Eastern leagues.
Yeah,
I'd
exactly,
imagine.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely his achievements. Anyway, so, and this is the thing, talk about Sancho at Dortmund. Dortmund did this with Aubameyang as well, Aubameyang famously had issues with Mikel Arteta at Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I think I backed Arteta the whole way in terms of getting rid of him. If he's turned up late, I think he turned up late to training the week in the build-up to a North London derby game. Aubameyang's our captain. He's the one and we had mostly young players then as well.
Yeah.
It's this new team that Arteta's been building. Setting the example and he's turned up late. If Arteta let him get away with that, what's that telling? Everyone else in the dressing room.
And it actually benefited Arsenal for Aubameyang to leave, didn't it?
Yeah, and it set an example, and it's right, Arteta's way. And what it also showed is the club backed him, like the senior managers, the chief exec, that kind of stuff. Edu backed him right from the start, so... Yeah, it sends a message, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it proves the point about the player attitudes, is that it's not necessarily just that one player. It's not an isolated incident, because those players make friends with the other players. They look up to certain the veterans or the captain and everything. If the veterans, if the people that they look up to are acting up, are not listening to the manager,
setting an example, basically.
then why should the rest? Case in point, well, you mentioned Aubameyang, as the captain, but I would say Bruno.
Oh, right now at United.
And I'm not saying that Bruno isn't putting the effort in on the pitch. He clearly is.
He's passionate, and it seems like he gives his all. I think, speaking to a lot of United fans, they feel that you can see he works his socks off.
Yeah, and still now you can see that if he doesn't perform, usually United doesn't perform.
Yeah,
so he's definitely he's an absolute key player. However, if he's being the stroppy guy, diving,
that's petulance, isn't there?
The petulance, the arguments. Yeah, if he's doing that, then why should Marcus Rashford act any differently to what he's doing now? Would Roy Keane have accepted Rashford's standards?
No, but this is Roy Keane who told Ferdinand off for not passing it forward.
Yeah,
Famously, he said, if you're passing it sideways, you're not. Why are you at Manchester United?
Yeah,
you need to be taking more risks and trying harder and that kind of thing. He's not going to let Rashford do what he wants, is he?
No, and he's
that's
always
what a
said
captain
it.
Needs.
Yeah, he's always said it in things like Stick to Football, hasn't he? That as the captain, he wanted to make sure that his standards were no lower than he expected of anyone else.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. So as long as those standards are pretty good. The other way of seeing it is like you're the manager on the pitch. So the captain should be someone who the manager has that trust, and the trust goes both ways.
Yeah, because the manager's done their part before the game, basically.
Yeah, and then they're trusting the players to go out. So the captain's there to help to maintain those standards, basically. Yeah. That's the idea.
And I do recognise, I've just pointed out Jadon Sancho, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford.
Oh, yeah. You're picking on United here, Seth. I don't know what your beef is with United. I think you lay off them, all right?
No, I don't hate United. We've always said we don't hate any teams, but we hate Chelsea. Yeah.
Sorry, Chelsea. Sorry, Dad. He's a Chelsea fan. Anyway.
Are they still your second team? No, your second team is now Brighton, isn't it?
Probably Brighton. I like Brentford, They might. I just love Thomas Frank. I loved Brighton for a while when they were playing really good football. They've had a really difficult year this year, but they're still a well-run club. How they get the players and sell them on.
True.
But I have a lot of admiration for Brentford as well. Like Thomas Frank, I love his management style. He's so honest and up front. He just, you're gonna want. I want to play football for him. And the way he manages his team, the way he gets the most out of the resources he's got there.
Yeah,
I think they're brilliant. How well coached they are, Brentford. So
I'd
probably say Brentford's my second team now.
Okay.
Since Abramovich, basically, Chelsea suddenly are not my sort of neutral team. I used to love the Zolas and, used to have the Hasselbanks and all those players. Jasper Gronkier.
Yeah, I used to like Zola. There would always be a couple of players like Willian I liked.
Was he a Mourinho signing? I'm not sure, actually. But he played under Mourinho's second time, I suppose, wasn't he? But...
Mourinho's only there a couple of years before he leaves anyway.
Oh, yeah, good point, yeah.
There's this idea that Chelsea fans have that he's this legend that's been like this stalwart.
Yeah, he had about 3 seasons with him or something.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. Fergie had 26.
Yeah.
Or that's what you said. I'm quoting you on that. Was it
26 years? Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Don't doubt my stats.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's 1986 to 2013, was it?
Yes.
So there you go.
27.
Damn. You just corrected yourself. Right. Attitudes of players. So what do we expect from players then, basically? What are we sort of saying that the standard should be for all players?
We expect them to be role models, don't we? So we expect
lead by example to fans and kids and
so that we don't want them to act out. We've said it before with I can't remember which episode it was, but like with toxic fans, they look up to a lot of these people. They grow up watching these players, so we expect them not to start fights and get arrested and all these things. But also, we should be expecting for them to be professionals, pure professionals, so that as we would expect in any profession, we'd expect them to at least be on time, if not early, to work, put in the effort.
Take pride in their work.
Take pride.
Set a standard,
Understand and respect authority as well. There's way too much player power now compared to even what it was during our childhood. any manager was respected. Whereas now, you can just imagine any manager going in now, they have to try and earn respect. Earning respect is always good. However, if you're in a position of authority, you should be respected.
If you're the manager, you're the captain, there should be a ranking system still. Yes, you still want there to be harmony and everyone's seen as friends and stuff in the dressing room and stuff, but it's a profession. We call it professional football. Would you say, Sancho and Bruno and these players that are acting out like that, they're unprofessional footballers, aren't they?
Yeah, completely unprofessional. And I'm sure it goes right down to at the very bottom. We've heard Lineker and stuff saying they had to clean their own boots, and they only had one shirt, I think, didn't they? They had to wash it. I think some of them, they had to take the team's kits home, and
they take it like we would for Sunday League. The whole team taking turns washing the kit.
Yeah, and then when you're starting to break into the first team, or if you get into the squad, then you're cleaning the first team's boots.
So
and
the
stuff
ranking
like that.
system, basically. Yeah, it sort of teaches a sort of humbleness, doesn't it? So you learn from the ground up what it means to.
Yeah, whereas now Micah Richards always talked, didn't he, about how they've got kit men, so that when they go into the changing rooms, all their kit and everything is all nicely folded.
Yeah.
When they finish, they can just throw everything into a pile and don't think about it. And I saw this clip. It's like a 5-second clip of Man City players after training. They just took their training kit and just threw it into a pile, threw it pretty much at the kit man who was like trying to put it in the bags.
Yeah.
And it just shows you.
That's why everyone hates Man City.
Yeah, it's exactly, that's my point, is that Man City's the worst.
So really, this is the message of this episode, isn't it? That's what you've been gearing up for.
Yeah, I wanted to just put that dig in. Yeah. But yeah, these footballers, as soon as they become professional, they already are treated as the kings.
Like royalty, I suppose, aren't they?
Yeah. And it's a shame, really, because you don't get that in any other profession, do you? When you got your first teaching job, they didn't go, well, now you're a teacher, so you're royalty,
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I love my job anyway. I'm not putting this as a CV or anything to get out there, but in terms of, it's changed a lot since we were at school, for example. Some of the ways I have conversations with students, a bit of banter and a few jokes as well. I teach sort of sixth form ages, so they're more grown up anyway. But some of the students, the way they do speak to me, I wouldn't dream of saying things like that they're saying to teachers.
Are you talking about Eric again?
It's just Eric, he just says things that...
He's so problematic. I don't know what you need to do, really.
So it was very similar to that Jadon Sancho thing. So, yeah, people turn up late and then they blame the bus every time. So we've had this conversation. There's sometimes they walk in with headphones in and this is just common.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's things you hear about the dressing room or the changing rooms in football. Players are often, after a game, staring at their phones rather than chatting to each other, which would have been, when we were kids, that's what football players were doing in changing rooms then, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just, times have evolved. And that's not necessarily just a bad thing, but that respect can't be lost.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're not saying that nothing can change. Of course it can, but you still need to have respect. Respect for your elders, respect for your authority figures, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they have a role to play as well. They need to lead by example. So it's a two-way process.
That's exactly it. And there was that podcast recently. Well, Simon Jordan has his podcast, and he had John Terry on. And do you remember when he talked about...
the plane thing?
Yeah, the player power there. So for anyone that didn't hear, John Terry wanted to sound like a leader, and yet all he did was he came out...
Wasn't he?
Yeah, he came out as an absolute douche, didn't he?
It was a new manager, wasn't it? The guy...
AVB. Is it AVB?
Yeah, AVB.
But I can't remember what it stands for.
Villas-Boas.
Yes, Andre Villas-Boas.
That one, yeah.
So, yeah. Was it that they were all in first class?
I think the way I heard it was on TalkSport, wasn't it? And I think I heard it...
Well, that was on the... Yeah.
Oh, it was a snippet from
podcast.
the Simon Jordan they played on TalkSport, yeah. And I think I heard it that it was the youngsters, the reserves net, were getting first class, and the normal players were in normal economy or whatever it was, just standard. But Terry refused and said, no, we're going in first class, they need to go into the economy, or something
I thought it was that...
lines, I think. But...
I thought it was that all of them were first class, and he said, no, we're not going until the youngsters go into economy or something like that. Either way, he came... I don't think he came across the way he hoped it would. He wanted to seem like this real captain. He looked out for everyone, but...
He was sticking up for the senior players, him, Drogba, Lampard.
Yeah, and he was saying, like, if this doesn't happen, me, Drogba and Lampard aren't going.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah. So we got on the plane, and I'm sitting in economy on a 13-hour flight, which I kind of get. It's a long haul flight and everything. And we've got players like Josh McEachran, Nathaniel Chalobah, players like that from the young, the up and coming players and that kind of thing. A couple of other young players, all in first class, and this was part of ABB saying, no player is bigger than me. Everyone's the same. I don't think you necessarily managed that situation well, AVB, to just make that, to set that and just try and. I don't think you need to have a bit of trust in the dressing room to do it. So I think there's improvements the manager needs to look at, like you need to reflect on it. But for Terry to say that,
Also, I don't believe Terry.
Oh right,
it sounds too much It sounds too well set up for him to make the point about.
So it's his side of the story. There's definitely another side.
Yeah, I can't really believe. Maybe it was like they had a raffle and some of them got to go to first class.
Yeah.
Maybe they paid themselves to go into first class. I just don't believe that.
There's probably more to the story.
Yeah.
He was quoted as saying, no, we're not going anywhere until the young players are back in economy and the first team players that have built this club go back into first class.
Yeah, and this is the same guy. John Terry is someone that I think he's a fantastic footballer, but as a person, I think he's a despicable guy. And a lot of Chelsea fans will, I'm sure, hate on me for it. But the thing is, they're defending a guy that has done a lot of bad, hasn't he, publicly?
Yeah, there's lots of. He's been in the news a lot for not necessarily positive reasons. Yeah. It doesn't sound like if you think it's very awkward when you're in a dressing room. You don't always have the choice of who you're sharing a dressing room with, or in the workplace who your team is and stuff. But at the very least, you want someone who's going to be representing similar values to yourself and respectful and that kind of thing. If someone's leading, and especially if they're in an authoritative role, if they're captain and stuff, to set that example.
Yeah, I can't imagine Van Dijk, for example, doing half of what Terry would do. I can't imagine him doing anything other than being a model professional. You know?
Partly. I mean, imagine that the PR, and they've got whole teams, don't they, that manage their PR these days. So what Sancho's done must be really bad, because he must have a team around him that's true. Must be advised that they probably have a lot more than what Terry would have had back then. Yeah, but that's not taken away from the actions that Terry has done. I know that some things he had criminal court cases and stuff. I think it was quite
in terms of fixing it, the one main thing, I'm going to say a fix. However, it's more the end result that I want out of it.
Don't be an arse.
That's what you want out of it, I suppose. Well, I think that the biggest fix you can do is to bring back club or manager power. So that because the player power is so big now, they can do what they want, and they can just say to their agent, "I'm going to move then," or they'll just act out and go into the newspaper and
they even get their agent to plant something in the media just to get things ruffled. So they force a move sometimes, don't they?
Yeah. So I think the best fix is to take away player power and give it back to the manager or the club.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that's kind of like almost the end result, it's because there's so much that will go into it. You need to take power away from agents, for example.
Yeah,
we've
definitely.
said it before.
We've said
with
that,
agents. Yeah. And that's an obvious one as well. And that's such an easy fix, but they just won't, because there's so much money in it.
Hopefully the regulator or the Premier League, one way or another, are going to cap, like we talked about the American system, didn't we?
Because if there's one thing we know about regulators and punishments and stuff, it's fair, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Not thinking about the 115 charges that Man City got or anything.
No.
Yeah.
God, you really hate Man City, don't you?
Listen, I told you, I don't hate any teams, but we hate Chelsea. All right?
Okay. I hate Chelsea.
But yeah, so taking agent power away, contracts. I think contracts are something that they shouldn't just be so easily broken. What's the point in a football contract?
It does seem sometimes that you've signed a contract, but actually you just do what you want anyway.
Yeah, and usually with any, if you get a phone contract, for example, and you want to move elsewhere, you've got to buy your contract out.
Yeah, you have to pay it off in order to do it.
Yeah, but they don't have to do that with Otherwise, all the fees that you're paying, they'd have to pay 3-4 times that in order to buy out the rest of their contract, but they don't. And I think they should give power back to these contracts. If you're going to sign an 8-year contract to a team like Chelsea, fine, you can sign an 8-year contract so that the fees are dispersed over a longer period of time. However, you are not allowed to leave the club for, let's say, at least 50% of the contract. If you leave before that, then I don't know what the punishment.
Maybe you have to, if you're on contract, you're paying for a product of some kind. If you damage that or you break that, you have to pay it off. There'll be a financial, you have to pay money back or something. If you, something along those lines. We're fixing contracts now as well as attitudes. That's how good we are.
Yeah, well, I think that the biggest
part
problem.
Of it, I think you're right. The principle is player power needs to be reduced for sure. Definitely.
Completely, because if you reduce player power, then immediately the players will have to be model professionals to be picked to go to the right teams and everything, and all of a sudden they're going to start trying to be in line with the team they're in.
I think a big problem is the money in football. The money that players are getting, they're paid so much. It's kind of, you're saying it, they're that important. I mean, they are important. They're assets to the team. They literally are assets. They're the things that the team's trading, buying and selling.
Yeah.
And they're the assets are going onto the pitch and hopefully earning results for the team and things. But so they are important, but the amount they're paid is beyond ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it puts them on a scale that's so elite in society, so out of the standard deviation, if you like, just to get one in there for Coops. They're just complete outliers in terms of how much they're earning.
Yeah.
They're in the top 1%, aren't they, really? Most of these, especially the top level footballers. So,
most of them will earn in a week what the two of us would earn together in 5-6 years.
Some of them, you think some of them are on $500,000. Like, what's De Bruyne on?
Yeah.
Like, he's on almost $500,000 a week or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you think of that, it's just, I think that puts them on a scale where they think, we can't be touched. I've just got so much money. I've got so much influence and power.
Well, the one good thing that I've seen is that the pay's gone up exponentially, really, since we've been watching football. However, the effort players generally put into training and games hasn't really dipped as such. The tactics have changed, the pitches have changed, and all those things, but efforts in general haven't really changed. In fact, recently there's been so many more injuries because they're probably being pushed a lot more nowadays. Maybe. So I don't think money's necessarily changed their output, but it's changed their attitudes.
That's the thing. I'd definitely say I don't think there's a huge amount of evidence to say there's been a change in output, like you say. But attitude-wise, it's definitely changed. And like I say, it's younger generations coming through.
It plays into the player power again, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And when every generation's different anyway. When I think about my parents and my grandparents and stuff, and the way my dad and my mum as well would kind of instill discipline at home in terms of how expectations, polite, all that kind of stuff. I imagine that's changing between generations anyway. So these football players have been brought up with different approaches, I suppose, and that's going to have an
expectations. Yeah. Does your dad listen to our podcast?
I don't know. I'll have to check on
Does
that.
he know we have a podcast?
Yeah, I did. Okay. And he really liked my Batman videos. He said they're very good.
Wow.
He was here last week because I showed him the Dark Knight.
Oh, so you had to show it to him. He didn't.
Oh yeah. Right. He has got a smartphone. I'll have to send him some things over, I suppose. Yeah. Get him to listen to it.
Yeah, it'd be good to get his input as previous generation. Same as
like your dad. We're trying to get your dad onto the show, aren't we?
Yeah, that's true. It'd be good to get their point of view.
I know that you get on with my dad because a few times, a couple of weeks ago, didn't you? I had a nice football chat with him. You two are like best buddies.
Well, I think even though he's a Chelsea fan, I think he's a good guy.
The thing is, he was a bit like Coops. He was a Chelsea fan before they turned evil.
Yeah.
So he was there before the dark times.
Yeah.
Before the Empire.
Yeah, so you can allow them the fact that they're Chelsea fans. That's okay. Because they're
the real ones, yeah.
Yeah. Not just giving away money.
We haven't got any Chelsea fans listening to us now, have we? They've certainly tuned out.
Man City fans. If you see any Man City fans, you go, you weren't Man City fans before 2012.
No, definitely not. Well, especially the ones I see, because they're all my students' age, because they're students. They're literally just, oh yeah, I'm a Man City fan.
God,
yeah,
you hate
all
Eric.
my life.
It's just constantly about Eric, isn't it? So what if he's a Man City fan that's late all the time?
Yeah, I've said this in a previous episode of our pod, but a Man City fan in one of my classes actually said, "Oh, I'm not worried about the 115 charges. We'll just pay it off. We'll just pay it off, and so we'll get away with it." I'm thinking that approach. Well, there's an attitude problem right there.
Yeah.
So I got rid of him. Nobody's going to see him anymore.
Nice.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't call the police.
That's the thing, because player power is massive, and their attitudes have changed, like we say, with money and stuff. And the fans' attitudes change as well. You know, we were talking about John Terry.
Yeah.
You remember when John Terry and Wayne Bridges' wife or girlfriend thing?
Yeah.
When
that's another example.
Chelsea fans defended John Terry.
Oh yeah, they did.
Wayne Bridge,
they kind of cast Wayne Bridge out, didn't they?
Yeah, Bridge was a Chelsea player, and yet they defended Terry.
Yeah,
and
he was the victim of that. It was.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll let you legally put yourself out there by saying what happened.
Well, no, it's I refuse to. I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request.
It means no.
But yeah, it changes the fans as much as it does the players, and then it can almost taint your club. You know, it got to the point. Didn't
Is that
it?
why we hate Chelsea?
Probably. Well, I mean, they had a series of. They kept on buying players like Diego Costa and just
just so annoying.
They looked around at the hateful players.
Who are the most hateful managers and players?
Yeah.
Mourinho. Let's bring him in.
Yeah.
And what football should we play? Rubbish football. Let's play some of that.
Rubbish football.
Sorry. Carry on. Not bitter or anything.
No. But yeah, it can change the fans, the club, everything. It's so influential. You take player power away, I think a lot of that, if not all, will pretty much disappear. I don't think it would really matter if they get paid loads of money, because we know they're still putting in the effort for good output on the pitch. And I think the attitudes would slowly change, because they'll realise they haven't got the player power. They're just privileged to be playing football. And
so are you saying that money shouldn't change then, or should?
The money definitely should change, because it's just ridiculous.
I mean, for those reasons, opposite from society's point of view, that money should be put towards much more valuable things in society and everything. But I just think it would have an impact on the attitude of the players. I think you still pay them, well. They're public entertainers. They're entertaining such a large audience. They deserve to be well paid.
Yeah.
But to pay them the vast amounts that they are now, what's sort of inflated to, I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, it's part of the problem. Yeah. I just think that if you sort out the player power first,
so in a dressing room, for example, if you're on 400 grand a week, if you're the De Bruynes and stuff like that, and the players in a dressing room and know this is public knowledge, essentially what you're earning a week, anyone can Google it, wouldn't they sort of think, wow, he must be amazing, he must be great, and suddenly everyone gets a bit daunted by it? That almost gives you power in a dressing room, doesn't it? The more you're paid.
Yeah, probably. And that is probably the same in society in general. But then if the output hasn't really changed, like we said, between when we were kids at the very least, or even before, in our parents' generation stuff, to now, then I don't think the money really matters as such.
Right, okay.
The main thing that's changed is the player power has gotten far bigger than the managers, definitely far bigger than the managers, and in a lot of cases it's gotten bigger than the clubs.
Yeah, this is actually, so I know we're jumping between the two now, but this is why I think money's a real problem. From the owner of the club, the chairmans and women's of the chairman woman of the club, is that they're paying the players so much more than the manager that they're much more valuable than the manager, in a sense. So from the top down, that's already setting a culture. The players are the most important people in the building.
And that's another thing that I think when we talk about contracts, if you get a manager to sign a 5-year contract, I think that should be given the same understanding as I'm saying with the contracts for players.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily just sack a player, sack a manager, because whenever a chairman is sat there looking at a team that's not doing well, do they sack 23 players or do they sack one manager?
Yeah.
So they go for the easy route.
Yeah.
But then it gives far more
Power to the
player
players.
power.
Yeah.
And so if you're confident enough to sign a manager for 5 years, then you should be stuck with that manager for at least half of that contract. I say half. If you give a rule that they have to at least be there for 50% of your contract, for example, then I think at the very least that'll take away this idea of player power that you're allowed to just act out, especially if you're a captain or a legend in the club. Then you can just act out and then oust that manager.
But the thing is, Mourinho's made how much money has he earned from being sacked? It's like he plans it. I don't know. I'm not accusing it. No. But in terms of one thing, that's also not relative to what happens in the real world, in real business and that kind of thing. If you're underperforming as a manager, you're put onto a kind of learning development. You set targets. You're given a structure around you that you have to meet these targets. If that's happening internally, great. But if you then sack a manager, you shouldn't then have to pay them vast sums of money. They're meant to be. Why are you paying them off to sack them, sort of thing? They've breached their contract because they haven't performed. Their end of the deal is that they produce results. If that happens in business and you're not producing results, you're going to lose your job, and they have to pay you loads of money for it.
And if you sign a manager, like Rooney, for example, when he got signed for Birmingham, and they went from 6th to 20th or whatever it was. In the space of a few months, and they sacked him.
Rooney's terrible, isn't
he? Well, that's the thing. If you are stupid enough to think that still a rookie manager who's learning his trade is somehow going to be able to do anything other than get you that kind of position
in one of the toughest leagues in the world,
then of course you're going to end up like that. And if anything, if you're told you're going to be stuck with a manager for 50% of the contract that you signed them on, they wouldn't have signed Rooney.
Good point. You might have said a good point there for once.
For once, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's just, you might say it's karma. I think Coops mentioned this before in the previous episode.
If anything, I'm more angry.
You are crying. Yeah, I'm karma. But Birmingham being relegated, that's one bit of news we haven't talked about, actually.
That's true, yeah. It's harsh for the Birmingham City fans, but I loved hearing that because I think...
the fact that they sacked a manager who got them in the playoffs, and then brought Rooney in because he's the man to take us forward, and then he just dragged.
That's Tom Brady as well, isn't it? He's one of the owners.
Is he?
Yeah.
So doesn't he own Burnley though, or who was the guy who owns Burnley? Isn't he one of the American guys?
One of the American guys.
Yeah, one of the
He's an American footballer.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
but it's not Tom Brady.
Oh, okay.
There's more than one American footballer.
Oh, is there? That owns Premier League clubs and Championship clubs.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That was that Watt guy from he was on
the episode of the thingy.
No, Tom Brady's Birmingham City.
I see.
And to be honest, a week or two ago I slagged off the Midlands derby, didn't I? So Birmingham fans probably don't like me too much. So
you're going to be hated by Chelsea fans, Birmingham fans, Man City fans.
Oh, come on, Man City don't have many fans. The Man City fan is what you're going to say.
Sorry, everyone. Just to let you know that Sess's views do not necessarily represent the views of the podcast and anyone else working in there.
Even though it completely does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Because you don't hate Chelsea at all, do you?
No. Definitely not. Even if I previously have admitted that I do. So, fixes-wise, we've said... for me, definitely a fix is sort the money situation out. Players are paid a ridiculous amount. That money, a big part of it, even if it's attached to a player, so they get the credit for it, goes to charity or something. So it goes to charities or public, societal things. NHS, for example, or something like that. So that's the way I.
Or like Coops mentioned before, to help out your community,
local community and stuff. Absolutely. So more kind of charitable means, sort of that kind of thing. So I'd be sorting the money out so that the money can't be inflating player power, because I think you're right.
That's my fix, the player power. Yeah. If any way to reduce player power and increase manager and mostly club power, or maybe mostly manager power actually. So contracts, one of the main things for me. So you have to if you sign a contract, then you have to at least be there for 50% of the contract or something like that.
I'm sure this must be in the contract as well, but something I'd be making sure is certainly valued more, because if it isn't a contract, it certainly doesn't seem it sometimes, is it says you must respect the instructions of the manager. You're somebody who needs to make sure you are as you would in our contracts for any job you might have, is you're there to respect the people around you and your team, and also to any line managers you have.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know? So
you'd hope so, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's nothing like that in there. If anything,
I
it's
wouldn't be
more
surprised
like,
either.
oh, do what you want.
I'm still in our, like, if you think in any workplace, it's in your contract that you follow instructions, you follow your orders, and that kind of stuff. In a sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're not spoken to like soldiers. We're still, treated with elements of respect and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree
I
with
just
that.
think so. It could be the contract side of things needs to be a bit more valued. I think.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure.
And taking power away from agents as well. That's
Get rid of them. Get rid of agents.
just get rid of agents in general. Yeah.
we
Or
really
at the
need
very least, the players have to pay the agents. Go back to that. Lineker
Yeah.
was saying that's what it used to be.
Why is it absolutely? Why should
Yeah.
the club pay the agents?
Yeah, and if that's going to be the case, then there can be no correlation between the agents' pay, what agents get paid by the players, and what the club pay for the player.
Yeah.
So they can't. The player can't say you have to pay me 20 million more so I can give it to
So
the
I can
agent.
pay it to the agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. No, I agree with that as well. We're fixing a lot.
Yeah. And if there's any way for us to get in on the charitable donations, that'd be
Yeah. I mean, this is a charity. We're helping. It's a good cause.
It's definitely non-profit.
Yeah, it's not. For now.
Yeah, it's not by choice, but
Yeah. We're not listed as a non-profit organisation,
no.
but we're just reporting that at the moment. But yeah, and we're a good cause for society as well, aren't we? So
absolutely.
there we are. So
Yeah, I mean, our fans learned a lot.
our fan did learn a lot.
Yeah, although we might have lost the fan because he's been so mean to Eric, but
Yeah, he's a Chelsea fan anyway. Get rid of him.
fair enough.
So there we go. So another day solved. Another day solved. Another day saved and
Yeah.
solved. So thanks for listening. Do as usual. I've got to mention my regular like and subscribe on our socials if you can. One thing we're really trying to push out at the moment is our YouTube videos and things. So go and have a look at that.
Yeah, and also give us ideas on what we should fix. Just maybe comment on the YouTube videos we like. Fixed.
Comment anywhere on the socials. Let us know if there's things you think we need to fix in football.
Yeah, because we are definitely capable of doing
Well,
it.
we're
qualified.
We're the most qualified, aren't we?
Yeah.
Hopefully you've enjoyed it, guys. We like to throw a few jokes in there and everything. So, any suggestions, let us know. And otherwise, we'll see you next time. Goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.